government, the government, it's the government, it's the government, the government, it's the government, it's the government, it's the government,
Women push
government,
their men to
the
go to the
government,
moon,
it's the
but our
government,
women
it's
push
the
us to hold their hands and walk on the street.
it's the
What kind of
government,
nonsense is
it's the
that?
government, it's the government,
He's telling the truth. I want more black men from here because I'm going to go back to Nigeria someday to do something in Nigeria, right?
No, you're not. Nigeria Nigeria suffers from brain drain, not more than Guyana or the Caribbean, but it suffers from brain drain. And you're not going to do anything back in Nigeria. Nigeria is a hellhole. Okay, corruption. Don't worry, we're going to tackle Nigeria in a second. So he just talked about he's an engineer, and most engineers in this country, he says are foreigners, black immigrants. Now we'll go over what that's the reason why there's a shortage of FBAs, ADOS, who are black engineers. But let's talk about why there are a few engineers, black engineers from the continent, right, that appears that they're doing better than FBAs here. Okay, that's called something, my boy. You were selected. You were hyper selected from your country. Basically, you were the best skilled, the most educated to represent your country, and you were pretty much drafted over here in America to give America your intellectual properties, give America your skill set to help make America great, not help make Nigeria great. You're not going back to Nigeria to do a goddamn thing. So now let Tone Talks talk about hyperselectivity.
Recent immigrants to the U.S. are diverse with regard to selectivity. Hyperselectivity refers to a dual positive selectivity in which immigrants are more likely to have graduated from college than non-migrants in sending countries. So go read this because we kind of went through it. But these people from Nigeria, from Cuba, from Asia, many parts like China and India, they're all hyperselected. So don't let them talk to you about culture. Hold on 1 second.
All right. So run that back once.
But I want black men in engineering. And I know very few kind of nonsense. But our women push us to hold their hands and walk on the street. What kind of nonsense is that? He's telling the truth. I'm an engineer. And I know very few black men are in engineering school. Most black men in engineering school today are foreigners. But I don't like that. I want
Recent immigrants to the U.S. are diverse with regard to selectivity. Hyperselectivity refers to a dual positive selectivity in which immigrants are more likely to have graduated from college than non-migrants in sending countries. So go read this because we kind of went through it. But these people from Nigeria, from Cuba, from Asia, many parts like China and India, they're all hyper-selected. So don't let them talk to you about culture. Hold on 1 second.
Right. So you got these hyper-selected Nigerians or blacks that come over here and they do well without considering, you are representing the brightest minds of your country. You are representing the most skilled of your country. You're coming to America to give us your intellectual properties. So think about it. You're taking your elitists and you're dropping them off over here in America amongst FBAs altogether. Our worst, our middle, and our best. How about you take your elitist class and compare them with our elitist class? Not your best, and then say, hey, let's compare our best to your whole, which is a tether argument. Okay, and it's a argument that a lot of people outside of Black immigrants like to argue when they come over here, to compare a small percentage of themselves that don't represent, by the way, his intellectual properties do not reflect or represent the whole of Nigeria. We're going to talk about the whole of Nigeria. And even the Caribbean, when they come over here, that are, I can't even say hyper selected, but let's say high selected or hypo selected to come over here. Again, you are the best representation of your country. And we're going to talk about that in a second as well. But let's first keep getting conquering these talking points.
Around and say Africans are doing what? Did I stop you from going to school? Am I the reason your asses are uneducated? Am I the reason you can secure a job? Damn, when I listen to some of you speak at times, I just don't know, I just think you niggas are dumb. Like, I just feel you niggas are damn stupid. Like, this is 2022, you still have the mindset that Africans are your problem. Funny enough, Africans only make up 1% of the population.
Okay, so another Nigerian man. This is why I'm biased sports. I'm also FBA defensive unit. I say that there really can't be no true alliance with the diaspora or the continent. There just can't be, because the hate that comes from them solely, we respond to the hate, and they try to lump us up all together as a back and forth. There's no back and forth. We don't think about you guys at all. Our problem in this country has always been white supremacy. You guys come over here with us in your mind. You're, like you said, you're 1%. We don't think about you. We're trying to compete and close the wealth gap between FBA and white Americans. You're not on our mind at all. You don't move our needle at all. But when you come over here talking your trash and have these white supremacist views about us, that's actually outdated. A lot of y'all white supremacist views are the views of white supremacy, like during like the 80s and 90s. Like, update your white supremacy views on us. So when you come with that, and then you cosplay as us, and then you have all these social media platforms depicting us in the most negative ways possible, you become you by doing that, you get on our radar, and as a result, you become a target. So don't cry foul then. When we finally pay you attention, now you want to go back invisible. It's too late. It's too late. So now, again, you have a small group of Nigerians, blacks from the diaspora, that are hyper selected, high selected, hypo selected. So meaning that they represent the intelligence of their country, the elitist status of their country. They come over here. So it's the best their country can offer, basically. They come over here and try to compete with us as a whole, meaning our best, our middle, our medium, and our worst. What about the rest of your country? You don't represent. You represent. You don't reflect the intelligence of your country. So whatever skill set you have, whatever education you have, you are the anomaly of your country. You are your elitist class. Go bring your brother. Go bring your mama. Bring those uneducated, illiterate folks over here, and let's compete. A handful of you. And the best you could do in this country is become an engineer. Kudos to you.
The dominant population, migrant population, are Asians and Mexicans. Why aren't you going to them? But Africans are the ones that are your problem. Let me first of all start by telling you,
All right, so we keep hearing that. We actually addressed Mexicans that exercised or demonstrated hatred towards FBAs. We already addressed Asians, but guess what? They don't cosplay as us, and if they did, it's easily distinguishable. The problem with you guys and the threat you guys present is that you can cosplay us and fool the world that you are actually us. You even could fool us. All right. Now, let's talk about Nigeria. Not just talk about it. Let's learn about Nigeria. Since you guys are over here doing so well, a handful of you, 50.
Right now, let's take a good look at Nigeria and Jamaica and try to uncover why there's so much vitriol for foundational Black Americans, or also known as FBA, coming from the continent and the diaspora. Please show support 3 different ways, starting with subscribing to Unbiased Sports Podcast and his other channel, FBA Defensive Unit. Like the video. If it's in your means, then reach out with a donation that shows appreciation for all of the long hours of thorough research in an effort to educate you and entertain you. Look up. The Cash App is $Unbiased Sports. It's time to get started, you dig? Nigeria gained a degree of self-rule in 1954 and full independence from the United Kingdom on October 1st, 1960. The disequilibrium and perceived corruption of the electoral and political process led to 2 military coups in 1966. The first coup was in January 1966 and was led mostly by soldiers. Nigeria enjoyed an oil boom in the 1970s, during which the country joined OPEC and received huge oil revenues. Despite these revenues, the military government did little to improve the standard of living, help small and medium businesses, or invest in infrastructure. As oil revenues fueled the rise of federal subsidies to states, the federal government became the center of political struggle and the threshold of power in the country. As oil production and revenue rose, the Nigerian government became increasingly dependent on oil revenues and international commodity markets for budgetary and economic concerns. Boko Haram and the bandit conflict have been responsible for numerous serious attacks with thousands of casualties since mid-2010. Since then, according to the Council on Foreign Relations Nigeria Security Tracker, over 41,600 lives have been lost to this conflict as of October 2022. The United Nations Refugee Agency UNHCR counts about 1.8 million internally displaced persons and about 200,000 Nigerian refugees in neighboring countries. Nigeria's economy is the 4th largest in Africa, the 31st largest in the world by nominal GDP, and 30th largest by PPP. GDP, PPP, per capita is US $9,148. The security situation in Nigeria is considered inadequate despite political stability. 68% of Nigerians feel not safe in their country. 77% do not know of an alarm number helpline for emergencies. Nigerians, according to the above survey, fear being robbed 24% or kidnapped, also 24%, being victims of armed bandits or of petty theft, both 8%, or being harmed in the herdsman-farmers conflict, also 8%. Internationally, Nigeria is infamous for a type of advance fee scam along with a form of confidence trick. The victim is talked into sending money or bank account information to the scammer on the premise that a larger amount of money will be transferred to them. In reality, the scammer collects money from the victim with no payout occurring. In 2003, the Nigerian Economic and Financial Crimes Commission was created to combat this and other forms of organized financial crime. The EFCC is quite active. According to the International Monetary Fund, 32% of Nigeria's population lives in extreme poverty as of 2017, living on less than $2.15 a day. The World Bank stated in March 2022 that the number of poor Nigerians had increased by 5 million to 95.1 million during the COVID period. Accordingly, 40% of Nigerians live below the poverty line of $1.90 as handled by the World Bank. Despite the undoubted existence of slums in Nigeria, for example, The fact that 92% of men and 88% of women in Nigeria own a mobile phone is difficult to reconcile with the poverty percentages published by the IMF and the World Bank. Nigeria's human rights record remains poor. According to the U.S. Department of State, the most significant human rights problems are the use of excessive force by security forces, impunity for abuses by security forces, arbitrary arrests, prolonged pretrial detention, judicial corruption and executive influence on the judiciary, rape, torture, and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment of prisoners, detainees, and suspects, harsh and life-threatening prison and detention center conditions, human trafficking for prostitution and forced labor, societal violence and vigilante killings, child labor, child abuse and child sexual exploitation, domestic violence, discrimination based on ethnicity, region, and religion. Discrimination based on sex is a significant human rights issue. Forced marriages are common. Child marriage remains common in northern Nigeria. 39% of girls are married before age 15, although the Marriage Rights Act banning marriage of girls under 18 was introduced on a federal level in 2008. 293. There is rampant polygamy in northern Nigeria. 294. Domestic violence is common. Women have fewer land rights. Maternal mortality was at 814 per 100,000 live births in 2015. Female genital mutilation is common, although a ban was implemented in 2015. At least 500,000 suffer from vaginal fistula, largely as a result of lack of medical care. Most Nigerian literature is written in English, partly because this language is understood by most Nigerians. Right now,
So there you have it. Okay. Bullet points. Nigeria's government, corrupted as hell. Okay. What was that? 60% of Nigerians feel like it's not a safe country. The government is so focused on oil, exporting oil, that it left the public to pretty much defend for themselves. They don't invest in the citizens at all. They hire their own families to run government. They don't hire the best, most qualified people. So he comes over here, or Nigerians come over here. They get an education. They can apply that back in Nigeria because education doesn't mean anything. It's about who do you know? Who are you related to? It's a bloodline thing over there. They make the GDP is what, $9,000 a year? Okay, you're really competing with us. Scamming is part of their wiki, part of their Britannica. That's hilarious. Women's click mutilations. That's primitive. Girls under 18, under 15, forced to marry. These child PDFs, full of them. 40% of Nigerians make $2 a day. Excessive police brutality and child sexual exploitation. And they come over here thumbing their nose up, looking at our collective. Again, a few of them are hyper selected because America's all about brain gain. Okay? Pause, straightening. So they will draft the best. They did it in Journey with the scientists. They will draft your best to come over here and help make America greater while your homeland suffers. They don't benefit from your intellectual properties while you're over here. And then you claim you're going back. You're not going back. You're not going back. Because again, your intellectual property means nothing over there. It's all about who are you related to and who you know. That's who can help change things over there, and nothing will change. It's a shithole. Okay, so now let's not leave Jamaica out. All right, so let's go Jamaica.
Please share podcast and his other channel FBA Defensive Unit. Like the video. If it's in your means, then reach out with a donation that shows appreciation for all of the long hours of thorough research in an effort to educate you and entertain you. Look up. The Cash App is $unbiased sports. It's time to get started, you dig? Jamaicans achieved independence from the United Kingdom on August 6, 1962. Jamaica's economy is heavily dependent on tourism. It has an average of 4.3 million tourists a year. By the beginning of the 19th century, Jamaica's dependence on slave labor and a plantation economy had resulted in black people outnumbering white people by a ratio of almost 20-1. Although the British had outlawed the importation of slaves, some were still smuggled in from Spanish colonies and directly from Africa. The population in 1834 was 371,070, of whom 15,000 were white, 5,000 free black, 40,000 colored or free people of color, mixed race, and 311,070 were slaves. The resulting labor shortage prompted the British to begin to import indentured servants to supplement the labor pool, as many freedmen resisted working on the plantations. Workers recruited from India began arriving in 1845, Chinese workers in 1854. Many Jamaicans are descendants of South Asian and Chinese people. In 1870, when the census recorded a population of 506,104 people, 246,573 of whom were males, and 259,581 females. Their races were recorded as 13,101 white, 100,346 colored, known as the Browning class, and 392,707 black. Independence, however, widely celebrated in Jamaica, has been questioned in the early 21st century. In 2011, a survey showed that approximately 60% of Jamaicans believe that the country would have been better off had it remained a British colony, with only 17% believing it would have been worse off, citing as problems years of social and fiscal mismanagement in the country. When Jamaica gained independence in 1962, the murder rate was 3.9 per 100,000 inhabitants, one of the lowest in the world. By 2009, the rate was 62 per 100,000 inhabitants, one of the highest in the world. Gang violence became a serious problem, with organized crime being centered around Jamaican posses or yardies. Jamaica has had one of the highest murder rates in the world for many years, according to UN estimates. Some areas of Jamaica, particularly poor areas in Kingston, Montego Bay, and elsewhere, experience high levels of crime and violence. In 2017, murders rose by 22% over the previous year. It is most prevalent in small island developing states. A recent study by the World Bank found evidence to suggest that roughly 85% of Jamaica's tertiary-level graduates migrate. Jamaica has the second highest incident of brain drain in the world. Guyana is first. The research indicated that roughly 89% of their tertiary-level graduates leave to find jobs elsewhere. More than 80% of tertiary-level graduates migrate from Haiti and Suriname as well. There is also another aspect of brain drain called brain waste, where migrants from one area to the next end up working in an environment where they never get the opportunity to apply their education, qualifications, or skill set. Brain drain involves the loss of valuable human capital that is necessary to help a country grow and develop. It is important for countries to have knowledgeable experts, technocrats, undertaking particular tasks, people who are competent at their jobs, who are capable of completing these tasks more efficiently. If not, the country will remain underdeveloped. A more knowledgeable and skilled economy is capable of making more informed decisions, which reduces wastage and maximizes efficiency and output. In Jamaica, corruption within the government is pervasive and entrenched in Jamaican society. Jamaican politics is overrun with corruption, and this is common knowledge among Jamaican voters. This corruption has led to a gross increase in government mistrust, poverty, gang violence, and is an overall detriment to Jamaica's reputation as a peaceful paradise. The government has consistently used forceful tactics in an effort to gain votes and wins elections because of these illegal acts. Corruption in the Jamaican government is a direct threat to democracy, and the effects are results of democratic erosion. Government corruption is widely understood in the minds of Jamaican voters. According to an article published in The Gleaner, a popular Jamaican newspaper, surveys constantly show that upwards of 70% of Jamaicans believe they live in a corrupt country. Gleaner, 2020. Corruption cripples democratic thinking and instills a level of fear in citizens who wish to exercise democratic participation. This was exemplified perfectly in Jamaica's most recent election, as it had one of the lowest voter turnouts in Jamaican history at 37%. BBC 2020. Jamaican citizens, being privy to the corruption within government, feel helpless in the effort to combat it. This results in lower voter turnouts, as many citizens decide not to vote. This fear to express political opinion contributes to the notion of Jamaica as a flawed democracy, a rating given to the nation by the Economist Intelligence Unit in 2016. Far before Jamaica received this title, there were already multiple chinks in the armor of democracy. In May 2010, former Jamaican Prime Minister Bruce Golding was referred to as a criminal affiliate of Christopher Coke, a hunted drug lord that had evaded police capture with the assistance of Golding while he was in office. However, their relationship was far from one-sided, as Golding's Jamaican Labour Party, JLP, was voted into power through Coke's murderous and strong-arm tactics. Esposito, Shown, Martinez, 2010. Corruption is not only prevalent in the government, but in the police department as well. This corruption has become the catalyst for a surge in gang-related violence, with 80% of illegal activity in Jamaica being gang-related. Due to the lack of trust in the police force, Jamaican citizens turn to local gangs for protection and monetary aid. Citizens of poverty-ridden towns in Jamaica share the same sentiment, that the government fails to address their needs and are apathetic towards their struggle. This enables them to look to local gangs for help, and when this happens, gang members oblige. The leaders of these gangs, the Dons, provide social welfare services such as school supplies, food, community festivities, and in some instances housing. Lumsden, 2016. These gangs that citizens are looking to are the same gangs government officials look to in order to garner votes and local support. Citizens will go to political representatives to receive help and will be denied, but government officials are consistently paying large sums of money to gangs in exchange for a mutually beneficial relationship. Government officials colluding with gang members is corruption in one of its most detrimental forms, as it allows for both a surge in violence and democratic instability. The use of gangs to gain votes has also caused polarization between the two political parties in Jamaica. The two main parties within the country are the Jamaican Labour Party and the People's National Party, with few differing political parties able to gain any traction in the political world. Although anti-corruption agencies have been started in Jamaica, these groups only work to expose corruption rather than prosecute it. Seeing as how corruption in government nothing is new to the Jamaican people, these agencies are hardly effective. Corruption is destructive in Jamaica, as it dissuades people from participating in society's legal framework. As a result, many Jamaicans turn to illegal organizations for safety and survival, depending on gang members for community aid, while also knowing that your government relies on those same gangs for their personal gain, is no way to live. However, it is the reality in Jamaica. I think that if a multifaceted approach is not taken against corruption, it will never stop. Jamaica needs to develop a plan that prosecutes corruption as opposed to only investigating it. If not, there will continue to be panic in paradise. Please show support 3 different ways, starting with subscribing to Unbiased Sports Podcast and his other channel FBA Defensive Unit. Like the video. If it's in your means, Then reach out with a donation that shows appreciation for all of the long hours of thorough research in an effort to educate you and entertain you. Look up. The Cash App is $unbiased sports. It's
Okay, so there you go. All right. So interesting. So let's unpack this. We got some bullet points. So factor in all of this when I play these videos going forward, how the Nigerians and the Caribbeans just talk shit about us like we are them. Like they're literally, Tariq Nasheed always said, "You're projecting, ma'am. You're projecting, sir." And I really never knew what he meant by that until I did my own research. And I'm looking at it like, yo, you're projecting your views about yourself, which is, you see, a shithole people. You're projecting that on us when you come over here. Your disgust with yourself in your homeland, you're projecting on us when you get here because we kind of look like you, but we don't look like your homeland. Okay, let's unpack what we heard. Okay, so in Jamaica, like Babylon said, they'll go back just to visit. They'll never go back to live. Okay, so Jamaicans, they outnumber the whites 20-1. So when they brag about rebellions, I don't even know if you can call it that. I don't know if you could call it a rebellion if you outnumber the people you're rebelling against 20-1. That's not a rebellion. That should have been a coup. You dig? 20-1, and all you can do is rebel and not turn into a coup. So you get respect if you turn into a coup. That's what coups do. Coups just take over. You know, they get the numbers and they mass up and they go take over. They run stuff. They implement their government. You outnumber them 20-1 and you're calling it a rebellion. Okay. So tourism make up the most of the money that Jamaica generates. That's not a good look. Because y'all can't afford some type of 2025 pandemic and they got to close borders when the bulk of your money that your country generates comes from tourism. That's terrible. So, I mean, what do y'all produce? Petroleum? Like, what do y'all produce over there? And come over here talking trash. Okay. When you were being colonized by the British, okay, you had the lowest murder rate in the world. When you guys sought for independence, when you guys begged for independence and was granted independence, you guys went from the lowest murder rate in the world. Now you're governing yourselves as savages and primitive people, barbaric people. So now you went from the lowest murder rate in the world to the highest murder rate of the world. So when they come over here, okay, I already can, illegally, legally, and they say, hey, look at Chicago. I got news for you. Chicago is a city amongst so many hundreds of cities, right? You guys are the Chicago of the world. Do you get that? You are the Chicago of the world. Jamaica is the Chicago of the world. You're comparing a Chicago city to a country. As a result, 60%, they did a poll in 2011, 60% of Jamaicans said they'd rather be under British rule than to be independent. And you guys have a nerve to say we are the worst representation of blackness in the world. 60% of you rather be under the rule of Zaddy than to be independent. That's why don't let these guys talk about Jamaica's pride. These guys are, they don't have any pride. They are quick to drop that flag. Case in point, Watch this. They are quick to tether on another identity. They are really, really quick to tether on another identity. I'm going to show you. Case in point. Why do I never, why are we doing this clip? I'll come back to that. Matter of fact, I never got the clip ready. These guys want to be under colonial rule. 60%. This is 2011. 60% of them said we would rather be under colonial rule. You guys are too quick to drop your identity, and you want to be British. You want to be British. You want to be Canadian. You want to just be American. You don't even want to add the Jamaican. And you guys talk about FBAs. Hey, man, why don't y'all add the African? Well, why don't you add it? Why don't any country in the diaspora add it? Why don't the continents of Africa add African in their ethnic identifier? When you speak to an Ethiopian, they say I'm Ethiopian. They don't say I'm African Ethiopian. They don't say I'm African Sudanese, African Somalian. They just say I'm Somalian. But at least we say we're black. You don't even want to say that. You just say I'm British. Like we say we're Black Americans to differentiate from white Americans. We're different from them. We're dividing from them. We're delineating from them in the sense of being American. You guys just say you're American. You guys just say you're British. You guys just say you're Canadian. You want to drop the whole Jamaican Canadian. All right. So I got something for you. You said we are the worst representation of blackness in the world. But I'm going to tell you what we don't do. We don't drop our identity. We are proud to be ADOS. We are proud to be an American freedman, an emancipated person, and we are proud to be FBA. Okay? Can you say the same thing about yourself? Babylonian said, corrupt, having or showing a willingness to act dishonestly in return for money or personal gain. So he defined what corrupt is. When they talk about corrupt government, corrupt society, corrupt politics, corrupt people in Jamaica, he defined what that really means. Having or showing a willingness to act dishonestly in return for money or personal gain. Okay. So, what else is going on? Cassettes and records. I've been up since 5 a.m. working on this because I knew last night I ended the live early because I knew I was getting sleepy. I said, yo, let me not force it. I like Black excellence. I like FBA ADOS excellence. So let me do it right. Jamaica, you guys have the second highest incidence of brain drain and brain waste at 89%. Guyana's number one. What is brain drain? Well, in short, fleeing. Leaving your country, never to go back. At 89%, Jamaica. 89%. You guys don't want to be there, but I gotta give you guys credit. You did it. So you did a poll. You said that you would rather be under colonial rule than to have your independence, which is the most shameful thing a human being can ever say about themselves. Who would rather be colonized than to be independent? That is a buck broken mentality. So when we hear these guys come over here and talk about us, keep these things in mind. The Nigerians, women's clique mutualization going on. What is that? Okay, Nigerians, they are stealing from themselves. Like they can never level up because their major exports oil. But because of that, they abandon all other agriculture and other resources. So if you're not selling oil in Jamaica in Nigeria, you ain't making money. So as a result, what's going to happen now? They're going to try to sell oil. So they are busting the pipes. They're undermining their country's source of income. They're siphoning the oil from oil pipes and then undercutting their own country. They're going to meet people on the docks selling black market oil to these other foreign nations. They're undermining their own country for personal gain. Corrupt. They are corrupt. All right, so now I'm gonna get to my boy in a second on the prime minister. One of their prime ministers was bought by a drug lord. Oh my God. Babylon says they practice a culture of corruption, 100%. So when they say, hey, man, y'all don't got culture, well, shit, y'all definitely do. It's the culture of corruption. Chicago is Beverly Hills compared to Jamaica. That's what I said. If you take O Block and drop it off in Jamaica, yo, they would be a spectacle. Like they would think that's Egypt. Like, wow, look at them, man. Look at their tight jeans. Look at their Jordan 1s. Cassette said he dropped all the jewels I dropped. Yes, sir. I'm trying to tell you, man. Over here, day and night, I just research, and I won't give up on. Well, I'm pretty much done with Jamaica and Nigeria. I think I squeezed that lemon. Those lemons dry. So now I'm on to somebody else. Who is going to be? Somalia, Sudan, Trinidad, and Tobago. Who is going to be? Well, it's the person that I hear talking, woofing the most. It's the person woofing the most about us. Okay, let me see somebody else woofing about us. They're next. Their country will be next. But Nigeria and Jamaica, they do the most woofing about us. The most woofing about us. Jamaica has the highest cases of paternity fraud at 34.6%. Nigeria is coming in a close second at 30%. They're brothers. 30%. Nobody in the world is remotely close. So you're looking at 34%, 34.6%, and you're looking at 30%. Canada and the UK are at 2 point and 1 point, 2 and 1 compared to 30 and 34. So that means that 3 out of 10 men, or 3.5 men out of 10 in Nigeria and Jamaica that has a child is most likely not the biological father, unbeknownst to him that he's been part of a paternity fraud by the mom. She blamed the wrong lane. She blamed the wrong lane. They call that when a guy is raising a child, unbeknownst to him, criminally, in a case of paternity fraud, that is called a jacket. You become a jacket father. A jacket father, like I said, is you raising a child that you believe is yours, but is not. You've been victimized in paternity fraud by the mom deliberately. This was no mistake. Deliberately, you were chosen. So now you're wearing a jacket. They call it a jacket. Now you're wearing a jacket. Wearing a jacket represents you are responsible financially, uh, psychologically responsible for a child that's not yours, unbeknownst to you. You are a jacket father. So when you go to these guys' spaces and when they come over here, thumbing their nose up, running their mouth, trolling, you ask them how many jackets you got back in Jamaica. Because these men be having three. They don't just have one jacket. Like, they're not targeted by one woman. They're targeted by several. So one man can have 7 jackets, 7 kids, none of them belong to him, but he's financially obligated and emotionally obligated because she fingered him out. The government holds them reliable, responsible. As you can see, it's a corrupt government. Okay, so now I want to get to my boy who tried to change his Jamaican identity for a Caribbean identity. He dropped the flag, he dropped the pride. None of those guys got Jamaican pride. 89% of them were trying to get out the country to go tether on somebody else's history and then pretend to be them. What else we read? They are the Chicago of the world, and they got a nerve to point at Chicago. Like, are y'all serious? Keep in mind, in 1962, they got their independence. But by 1965, they were fleeing to America and Canada. 3 years of independence, and they were done. They're checking out. Sir, here's your room key. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm coming to America. I'm some Eddie Murphy. I'm coming to America like Eddie Murphy. You dig? They were out. 89% of them do not want to be in that country. So now let's look what happens. So I explained brain. Well, the video explained brain gain and brain waste. So let me just cover it real fast. So brain gain is America. We're receiving the intellectual properties of all these fleers from all over the world, and they're helping to make America greater. As a result, you're crippling your homeland because you're using your education, right? You guys are so smart and you guys work so hard, right? Well, guess what? You're not smart in your homeland and you're not working hard in your homeland. You're being smart over here and you're working hard over here. So as a result, your country's not getting smarter and no work is being done. Nothing's being built in your homeland. So you basically turned your back on your homeland. You're leaving it there to rot. You're leaving it there to fend for itself while you quote unquote live your best life over here. But your best life over here is not really a best life in American standards. You are living basically a normal life, if that. But you damn sure ain't got your feet kicked up. So a lot of you come over here and say, hey, man, we got to work twice as hard as FBAs. Everything is comparing themselves to us. They're so obsessed with us. Everything is about comparing themselves with us. You got to work twice as hard as us. You work harder than us. You work harder than us. I disagree. What I say is you don't work hard over here. Instead, you get worked hard over here. I'll say it again. You don't work hard over here. You get worked hard over here because of your illegal status. See, America is a capitalist country, and we exploit labor. That's what this country does. Once they see you have no paperwork, which a lot of you guys don't, you get worked hard. You don't work hard. Working hard is a voluntarily self-prideful thing that a person would do to show their wealth, right? Their wealth and accumulating wealth for the job, but they really show their worth. That's what I want to say. They show their worth to a company. Look how hard I work. So you're doing it is voluntary. It's voluntarily. Getting worked hard is not voluntary. Okay, that's the company taking advantage or exploiting you because you don't have proper paperwork. And then some of them will threaten to call ICE. or some of them will threaten to kick you out without pay because, again, you have no, think about this. This is not capping. This is not joking. You have no rights. You literally have no rights. So they could just not pay you and kick you out. All right. So that's what's going on. You don't work hard, you get worked hard. All right. Now, let me show you your brother. This is what you guys do the first chance you get in your homeland.
When he was 12, 22 years ago. He's now staying with his sister, who stayed behind in Jamaica. This is the first day in a country he only has grainy memories of.
I've been with my partner about 14 years. I've been with my partner, we have 2 kids back in the UK. I've got my dad who lives in the UK, and I'm just here.
Do you feel British or Jamaican?
I feel British. I was there from a child. I went to school there.
You went to school somewhere else, so you're no longer Jamaican. This is how fast they want to throw away their identity, their quote unquote culture, their pride, their Jamaican pride, right in the trash to be British. Look at this guy.
I feel British.
Do you feel British or Jamaican?
I feel British. I was there from a child.
Do you feel British or Jamaican?
I feel British. I was there from a child.
Do you feel British or Jamaican?
I feel British. I was there from a child.
One more
Do
time.
you feel British or Jamaican?
But we want this in slow motion because we really can't believe what he just said. I feel British over Jamaican.
I feel British. I was there from a child. I went to school there. I went to college there. I spent my whole life there.
I highly doubt you went to college, my boy. So now, why is he back in Jamaica? Right? Right? Because you can take you could take the corruption out the country, but you can't take the country out the corruption. All right, here we go.
Even my clothes, I have no clothes. I came here with one little plastic bag with 2 pairs of jeans in it. So everything is still in the UK.
Rayan was convicted of burglary 3 years ago and spent 12 months in prison. Since then, he's been fighting his deportation to...
So this guy, what happened to we got to work twice as hard? What happened to we got to work twice as hard? You're in the UK for a better life, better opportunities, and you're over there committing armed robberies. You're over there committing armed robberies. What happened to this? We work twice as hard as FBAs. All this cat. All right. Let's move on. Let's move on. You ever wonder why they traveled to Ellis Island and not to the deep south where we were? 97% of FBAs, when these black immigrants came over here, 97% of us were in the south. We were not in the north like that. In New York, like we made up 4.7% of the population in New York. We were in the south. These guys came, they took that little rowboat and they Euro stepped to the north, to New York. They skipped the south. They delineated. They were divisive first. Why do you ain't come to the south and help us out, build an alliance with us? Now, we could have really been one. You chose to go to the north, New York, so they literally have no southern experience. And this is why they don't have swag. This is why we can see them for who they are. They're not like us. They don't have that Southern stamp. They don't have, you need that Southern experience in America. This is why they can't sit right. They can't walk right. They got to look at us to see how to walk and sit and talk with your hands and talk with your head, how to roll your eyes. They got to look at us. They got to cosplay. All this stuff comes from the South. All right. So let's get rid of that. And now we heard about Nigeria. We heard about Jamaica. Now look at this fool right here.
Explore that.
Yeah. That's
So,
really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't
I
know
had
that.
no idea.
so
My fault. YouTube trying to crash on me. Let me just reset that. Okay, so hold on 1 second. Hold on. All right, I got to read the chats a little later because I'm getting a little distracted. So all right, let me stay focused. I read it because the chats is funny. It's too tempting to read. I'm over here giggling. But let me stay focused.
I have this tweet by McBeanie_, and they said African Americans are by far the worst representation of Black people. They are obnoxious, self-righteous assholes that make people's lives a living hell anywhere they go. And then she got like 390 likes.
Is she also Black?
No, I don't know what she was. But this is
Okay.
what she said. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's really a lot of hate, I feel like. I don't even really feel that way. I feel like
Okay. So she said, so this Jamaican woman who's responding to the hateful comment in some type of social media platform. She admitted that the words were filled with hate and they were harsh.
that's what mom would say, because I'm obviously like American, right? And I'm born and raised like in New York. So I have a lot of like culture, you feel me, from America. But like my mom would agree with that comment. She would agree with that post. She would.
Okay, so she just said that those words were full of hate and they were harsh. And then she said, my mom will agree with those hateful words directed at FBAs and those harsh words directed at FBAs. So we don't want to hear about this goes back and forth. These are parents who are coming over here with that hatred and those harsh words and accepting those things in their kids.
Would say like, but like in New York. Wow, that's the
Hell, by far, Beanie underscore, and they said African Americans are by far the worst representation of Black people. They are obnoxious, self-righteous assholes that make people's lives a living hell anywhere they go. And then she got like 390 likes.
So all that we know about Nigerians and Jamaicans, right? And somehow we are the worst representation of blackness or Black excellence. Okay, now listen to this tether. She's gonna say that those are harsh and hateful words, and at the same time, in the same breath, she's gonna say my mom believes those harsh and hateful words towards FBAs, and they want to convince you that this goes back and forth.
Is she also Black?
No, I don't know what she was.
Wait, what do you want? Hey, go ahead and drink. Come on. I gotta work. Let me work.
But this is what
Okay.
she said. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's really a lot of hate, I feel like. I don't even really feel that way.
Okay, now it's a lot of hate, harsher words. She don't feel that way, but her mom does. But then she's gonna she can't hold her image, her fake image too long, because then she's gonna feel that way in a second. This is why I'm trying to tell you guys, stop wasting your time trying to build an alliance with them right now. That's probably something later on in the future. But there's too much of this inside of them. It'd be too phony. It's like trying to establish a relationship with a racist white person. And you might surprise yourself. You might get more things done. Because white folks can get stuff done with you and still be racist, but put it to the side. Because, okay, let's just get this done. These guys, nah, they wear their racism, or not racism, but they wear their hatred on their heart. You see it. Okay, watch this.
feel like that's a little harsh. Obviously, like American, right? In America, but like my mom would agree with that comment. Like, she would agree with that post. She would say like, you know, lazy, like loud, rude.
Okay, now they keep saying lazy. They keep saying lazy. They keep saying lazy. You guys want to be under the thumb of colonial rule right now. You guys don't want to be independent. Who is more lazier than Jamaicans? 60% of them voted in 2011 in a 2011 poll that they would rather be under colonial rule than govern themselves. Most of them are in there making no money in their country. Remember, I said in America, they would say they work hard. And then I would say, no, you are worked hard. Well, in Jamaica, they hardly work. So in America, they're not hard workers, they get worked hard. And in Jamaica, they're not hard workers, they hardly work. Okay?
All the negative connotations.
That's interesting. So let's explore that.
Yeah, that's
So,
really
All right, so now I'm going to play the full video from here.
interesting.
so
because
underscore black people. Live.
that's really hard because you feel me, from America, like, you know, lazy, like loud, rude, all the negative connotations like you can think about when it comes to like like born and raised like African Americans. That's what my mom was gonna call them, right?
Yeah,
So why would she say that?
Because I don't like Jamaican, like Caribbean people. I don't even know if it's like a Caribbean thing or just like a Jamaican thing. But
Okay, you see that? She tried to pin these views on just her mother. And she tried to exclude herself. I don't feel like that. But then she said, I don't know if it's a Caribbean thing or a Jamaican thing. Okay. So now she's including the entire country and almost all the Caribbean. So she didn't say, I don't know if it's just my mom thing, or she said, I don't know if this is a Caribbean thing or a Jamaican thing. So she extended this hatred and these harsh words to her entire country and possible to all of the Caribbean. Let's hear it one more time.
Caribbean people, I don't even know if it's like a Caribbean thing because I don't like Jamaican, like Caribbean people. I don't even know if it's like a Caribbean thing or just like a Jamaican thing. But we come here, well, my mom comes here and she's working, right? Like,
Okay, you see this? Your mom came here as an illegal person. So your mom isn't working hard. She's getting worked hard, as I explained earlier. Okay, they're exploiting her because she's illegal. She has no rights.
like she's like busting her butt. Her mom is here busting her butt and like.
Now, they act like they come over here without any assistance, without any government assistance. They act like they just come over here and start working and buying homes. I ask you guys this. Her mom came over here as an illegal person. Illegal. Did she come over here with 80K liquid? Okay, so that means she had to seek refuge somewhere. When she got off the banana boat, okay, let me show you the boat. Okay, so when she got off this boat right here, did she have a suitcase full of money? So that means that this boat pulled somewhere. It came to shore somewhere. So you went from wet feet to dry feet, and you're going somewhere. You're going to seek refuge. You got cash to buy a house or just rent somewhere. Well, you can't rent. You got no paperwork, and you can't buy a home. So how are you seeking? How are you getting housing? Let's scratch our head. How are you getting housing? Oh, you're going to a neighbor's home. Okay. At some point, ain't your mom living on her own? So again, how is this happening with no paperwork? I smell government assistance somewhere. But listen to the tether. Listen to what she says next. Okay, she's really like her black stereotypes are like outdated. These are like the '90s stereotypes. Like, update your update your stereotypes if you're gonna be good at it.
Like there's this, and I'm from New York, so like I don't know about anything going on like in the South, but like we're from New York, we come here and like a lot of people are like, you know, living on like government assistance and all the
All right, so let's deal with that. We're on government assistance. Now, first of all, when you go to right now, if you go to get government assistance, let's say you go to get WIC or SNAP, the line is going to be full of immigrants, right? I'll just be nice and say that. The line, as you as an American finally have a hard time, lost your job, whatever, got some kids, and you want to get a quick, you know what I mean, a quick little snatch, you know what I mean, a little snap, not even welfare, so snap. You got a newborn, you dig, you know, job ain't really, you go get WIC. You're as an American citizen, you're behind all of these immigrants. The whole building is filled with immigrants. How do you know? Because the security guard, they're saying this, hey, if you guys are, you know, an immigrant or whatever, come over here, this line over here. Because what they're going for is other stuff, right? That you're not going for. So let's talk about that. So illegals can't really receive government by way of federal assistance. But what they're going to lie about is that they can get government, local, and state assistance. It's just that the federal government won't rock with them, but state and local governments will assist them. Okay. So now they can't get SNAP, they can't get TANF like that. But there are other food assistance out there that local and state governments provide for these illegals, and also there's other charities like the Red Cross and you know some Catholic churches that also um there are phone numbers they can call that just I mean I can give you the list. It just like assistant like programs, right? Assistant programs, and they'll tell you who should call. Okay, this is for men, this is for women, this is for men with no kids, this is for abused women, and this is for immigrants, this is for illegal immigrants. It tells you before you even call. Okay, and also illegal immigrants can get public education. Ma'am, that's government. They can go to school. They can go to your high school, your middle school, your elementary school. So illegal immigrants can even get public education. So we're not going to let you lie and talk about public assistance as though it's a bad thing when the first immigrants in this country was getting public assistance. Now, we're also going to unlock why are Black folks even getting public assistance? Are we as lazy as this tether thinks we are? Or have we been locked out of the wealth ever since ever since we came here? So don't worry, we're going to end this live with a bang, figuratively speaking.
those type of things. So like there's that negative like connotation of like Black Americans don't want to work, they don't want to get to it, they don't want to like get ahead in life. And like,
Don't forget, she said, I don't know if this is a Caribbean way of looking at FBAs or is this solely just Jamaican. So this went far beyond her mother. All right. And where are they getting this from? How is the whole Caribbean? I mean, yeah, they're not even over here. Why are we on their minds? We're not even interacting. So it does not go both ways. We're not thinking about people who don't live here.
increase their generational wealth and stuff like.
So we don't want to increase our general wealth. So talking like this, this is dangerous. Okay. So this is one of those talking points where the Jewish people would say never again. Like they don't allow you to remotely repeat the rhetoric that stemmed from Germany. They will tag you immediately with being anti-Semitic. And sometimes they be trigger happy because they're so never forget that sometimes they be wrong. Or oftentimes they be wrong when they charge people with being anti-Semitic or anti-Semitism. So our word tether, I say we should use it like the Jews use anti-Semitic. Anything remotely close, any talking points, any things you're saying about FBAs that was remotely close to those racist Southerners, racist slave masters, tether should be the word for you are anti-Semitic. You are anti-FBA. So tether, Tariq Nasheed, we're going to expand the definition past undermining us, putting roadblocks, getting our way, cosplaying. We're going to say being anti-FBA, trying to redirect us back into slavery, just like the Jewish people don't want that anti-Semitic rhetoric because that is what caused their Holocaust. Well, anti-FBA rhetoric was coming from the Klansmen, right? And other hateful whites after Black Reconstruction. And that led to the system of Jim Crow. So anti-Semitism led to the system or ultimately to the Holocaust. Anti-FBAism led to passing laws, Jim Crow laws, to harm us, kill us, and deprive us from equal rights and keep us without wealth, without money. So for this tether to come on and talk like this about us, she's erasing Jim Crow. She's erasing redlining, housing discrimination. She's erasing the civil rights movement. She's erasing the legacy of slavery. She's erasing our entire past and looking at us right now on. This is dangerous language here. This right here, this type of rhetoric, this leads to Jim Crow laws. This leads to slavery, chattel slavery.
That. And like also my mom, she will discuss like things like when Marcus Garvey like came to America to like, you know, speak to Black Americans and say like, listen, you guys cannot let white people oppress you because.
Okay, so she talked about Marcus Garvey coming over here to America to lecture Black folks. Okay, so now let's talk about Marcus Garvey. So Marcus Garvey came over here, right, about 1910, 1914. Now she says he came here, her mom teaches, the Caribbean teaches, Jamaica teaches, that Marcus Garvey came here to save Black folks. Ma'am, if Marcus Garvey came here to save Black folks, he wouldn't have went to New York. He would have took his goofy, lame ass to the Jim Crow South, where 97%, 90%, high 80%, however you want to do it. A large majority of us was in the Deep South. So if you wanted to save us from colonialism and white oppression, my boy, you don't go to New York, to Ellis Island. You go to Jim Crow, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. You want to save us, go there. Not to New York City. You're playing. We were in the Jim Crow South. Marcus Garvey knew had he came with that Jamaican scam and stuff there, he would have been looking down from a tree. Okay? So miss me with that. Then he came here to remember, get us out of the yoke of colonialism. Okay, cool. How is fleeing to Africa, to Liberia, getting out of colonialism? How is that solving it? Number 3, how are you going to get rid of the yoke of the white man from our neck when this is like 1914, 1920, when Jamaica didn't get their independence until 1962? So Garvey, my boy, Garvey, my boy, you are being colonized. You left Jamaica to come to America to defeat colonial rule while your country was being colonized. While you were the 20-1 fan favorite to win over colonialism. We are like one out of we are the reverse. It's 20-1 in favor of white supremacy over here. You guys are 20-1 favorites. We are the 21 underdogs. So first, how about you get the yoke off your neck? It should be a lot easier. It's 20-1. And then come over here and help us out. This guy literally left his colonial country to come over here and try to resolve our colonial issue. And he did it by wanting to flee without being on code with the Liberian government, Liberian president, because they made it very clear. Don't come here. None of y'all. Garvey or these foolish FBA people who are on board with him. Garvey is colonized in Jamaica at this time. Why didn't they flee to Liberia? Because they're being colonized too. So here we got Batman Garvey, Superman Garvey, all these fairy tales about Garvey. He's the new Santa Claus. They might as well do a cartoon about how Garvey's a superhero.
In Jamaica, Americans didn't say, like, listen, you guys cannot to like when Marcus Garvey like came to America.
Let me not forget, Marcus Garvey did what Tethers do. He came over here. He defrauded FBAs and got locked up and deported for fraud. And guess what? Marcus Garvey did meet with the colonial clan, but his energy was off because he wasn't saying, hey, man, let my people go. That's not what he told the colonial clan. He said, yo, I got you. Let's do something together. Let's walk. How Tariq says it. Let's walk. Y'all some hardworking Americans and we're some hardworking Jamaicans. Let's walk. Let's walk together. He wanted to build an alliance with the clan. He didn't come here to ask the clan to let his people go from the Jim Crow South. All right. So this fake superhero tale is farce. Okay. The dude got locked up for scamming and he got deported. People like W. Du Bois, intellectuals, black FBA intellectuals, ADOS intellectuals like W. Du Bois and A. Philip Randolph never rocked with Garvey. They wanted him deported from the time they met him, from the time they understood about his back to Africa plan. They started a campaign, which was called a campaign was called Garvey Must Go. They want him out of the country. They seen his scam from miles away back to Jamaica. A. Philip Randolph was an immigration restrictionist. He didn't want Germans immigrating over here. He didn't want Italians. He didn't want Chinese, and he damn sure also mentioned West Indians by name. He said the Negroes from the West Indies stay in the West Indies. Don't bring that fear-mongering weak colonial spirit over here. Stay where you are. So A. Philip Randolph never messed with Garvey because he was an immigration restrictionist. He didn't respect. He fled from his country to come over here and try to get us to flee from our country. He's over here trying to promote. This is A. Philip Randolph. He's trying to promote equal wages, equal rights. He was a civil rights activist, right? So that's what he's about. He wasn't about fleeing. When you're a civil rights activist, you don't flee. You stand your ground.
To like, speak to Black Americans and say, like, listen, you guys cannot let white people oppress you, because in Jamaica, we revolted against our slave masters. Like, we ran into the mountains, we created like nanny towns and stuff like that. So it's like, we kind of like we weren't taking it like slavery. We were not taking all that oppression. So there was, I think there's a lot there.
All right. So now remember that hate that she just tried to pin to her mom, that she said she didn't have it in her heart. You just heard it from her heart. And she extended that hate to all of the Caribbean and Jamaica. Okay, so now we rebelled. Ma'am, how do you call a 20v1 a rebellion? You outnumber the white supremacists in your country 20-1. That's not a rebellion. You're supposed to have a coup. You're supposed to just took over. That's not a rebellion. You're 20v1 in your favor. Prize picks, I'm picking you. I would have lost money. So all this rebellion stuff, man, all that stuff didn't work because you didn't get independence until 1962. And when you got your independence, and by 1965, you were fleeing the country to never go back, creating brain drain and brain waste issues with yourselves and your people. Right? So that's the fact. That is the hardcore facts, not the lies and fairy tales you're telling. Trying to revise history is not going to work, because Unbiased Sports is a master researcher. Okay? That's not going to work. Let's move on. So I want Tone to address that, what she just said. Okay, so now let me bring it back. Let me slow it down a little bit. Let's see how this works.
So when Vivek are talking, they are erasing slavery. I want you to think that every time you hear them talk, they are erasing you.
And every time you hear these tethers talk, they are erasing slavery as well. They are erasing us. They look at our current condition and they don't consider when America opened the borders, when we got our civil rights won, what they do. They open the borders right away. All of the immigrants who were restricted up until that time were no longer restricted. They were allowed to come over. They undermined us again. They never wanted us to okay, now we have equal rights, at least under the law. We're protected by federal government. Our rights are protected finally by force. Okay, let us thrive now. Let us live amongst ourselves and thrive. Nope. Here come the immigrants and they're going to live amongst you, undermining us every time. But again, when you talk to Vivek, Elon Musk, like Tone said, but I extend it to almost all foreigners that come over here. They all erase our past. Slavery, Jim Crow, convict leasing, parchment farming, peonage, all of it, redlining. They erase housing discrimination. They erase all of that. And they look at us as we are today. Every time they talk, they erase our history.
You did not happen. For their argument to make sense.
For their argument to make sense, You didn't happen. All of what I said did not happen for this tether argument to make sense. This Jamaican tether, for her argument to make sense, all this stuff never happened. They have to erase our history for their argument to make sense. Listen.
Erasing you. You did not happen. For their argument to make sense, your life and your family's lives and the slavery and the Jim Crow and the slavery by another name, it did not happen. They did not sit on the sidelines in the marketplace.
It did not happen. They're trying to erase our history with these crazy talking points. Okay? Yo, we are literally by ourselves. Yo, these folks did not come here to build anything with us. All right. So last thing is this, because this is for the Nigerian guy played earlier. Oh, I'm an engineer. There's a shortage amongst FBAs with the field of engineers. Okay, here you go.
3.6% of Chinese non-migrants report having a college education, whereas 52.7% of Chinese immigrants in the U.S. report having a college degree. So what does that mean? That means that they come from the 3%.
Okay, so y'all Nigerians, y'all come from the 3% of intellectuals in your country. Like the Chinese and also the East Indians. Y'all come over here, y'all come from the 3% of your countries, like intellectuals, elite.
So now when they get here, you can't let them tell you that Chinese work hard. Of course, if you take the oppressive 3% and bring them here, they're going to look like they work hard. Bring over the other 97. Bring the dude doing the pit pat.
Okay, so you hear that, Tethers? Bring over the other 97. Bring that guy that I played earlier that got deported from the UK for burglary. Bring that guy over here and tell me how hard he works. This guy's in the UK committing burglaries. He's supposed to be working hard. Walking hard. He's in the UK committing burglaries. It's a lazy piece of trash. Bring those corrupt politicians. Bring those big madas over here. Bring those guys with the jackets. Bring your family. And let's see how hard y'all walk.
Put differently, Chinese migrants in the U.S. are 15 times more likely than their non-migrant counterparts in China to have a college degree. This hyperselectivity drives the perception that all Chinese are educated, smart, hardworking, and deserving.
So this hyperselectivity of you Nigerians that's in this country, I can't say hyper for Jamaicans because that's not your thing, but I say this hypo and high selectivity amongst the Jamaicans. Y'all don't represent your country. That doesn't reflect y'all hard work. Doesn't reflect your country, your countrymen. They are a bunch of lazy, sitting around doing nothing people. The majority are. So you take a small portion of y'all, small sample size, and y'all try to say, look how hard we work. Look how smart we were. Look how smart we are. We are engineers. We go to college. That's a small percentage of y'all. The bulk of y'all are corrupt, criminals, scammers.
Among the Chinese second generation, the proportion of college graduates is 61%, compared to only 32% among non-Hispanic whites of native-born parentage, and compared to like 15.
Okay. All right. So now, let's talk about Ellis Island, right? Because we hear a lot of Black immigrants. They bring up Ellis Island all the time. I didn't know much about Ellis Island until recently, until a couple of days ago. I said, you know what? Let me look into this. All right. Because that's not my history. Like, we didn't do that. But let's look at it. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Come on, stat bot. Read this for me.
Another notable group of arrivals to New York in the 1920s was African Americans. Between 1917 and 1925, 200,000 African Americans moved to New York. They were part of the river of humanity flowing northward from 1916 to 1970, now known as the Great Migrati.
Okay. Well, really, the Great Migration. All right. So 200,000 blacks between 1917 and 1925 migrated to the north, to New York. So when Garvey came, he's meeting these guys. He's meeting these guys who are seeking a better life, right? They are getting to the education, the better institutions, things like that. But they're spread out. Now, this 200,000 only made up 4.7% of New York. Um, Garvey. I believe at this time there were like 20 million FBAs. So my boy, if you're coming to free us, if you're coming, and by the way, when he met with the Klan, he didn't say, let my people go, because he's supposed to be Moses. He said, let's walk together. So my boy, if you're coming to free us, you don't go to 200,000. That's already in their mind free, because they left the racist Jim Crow South, the dangerous, murderous Jim Crow South. So in their mind, they're free, right? Um, why didn't you go to the 20 million so-called African Americans? Why did you go to those who already believed they were freed in a sense? Anyway, the Great Migration. What is that? Statbot. Come on, tell us what the Great Migration is.
The Great Migration refers to the large-scale movement of African Americans from the rural South to urban areas in the North and West of the United States, primarily between 1916 and 1970, driven by the desire to escape racial violence, pursue better economic opportunities, and access greater educational options under the oppressive Jim Crow laws of the South. This migration significantly altered the demographics of major cities like Chicago, Detroit, New York, and Philadelphia.
Okay,
The
so
Great Migration,
no, 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 no,
1910
no,
to
no, no, no.
1970.
Relax, relax. You're doing too much. You're doing too much. Statbot. Thank you. Okay, so what happened? Driven by the desire to escape racial violence. That's the South, Garvey. That's the South. Racial violence, better economic opportunities, because ain't much going on over there, bro. A lot of agriculture and labor work. You and that banana boat sidestepped that. Y'all went to New York. The Industrial Revolution. Driven by the desire, I read that, and access greater educational options under the oppressive Jim Crow laws of the South. Oh, it said the South. Tiffany, you heard that? It said the oppressive Jim Crow laws of the South. And we're talking about Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. We're talking about states like that, right? Okay, so now let's go further. Watch this.
According to available data, an estimated 100,000 black migrants from the Caribbean, considered synonymous with West Indians, were living in the United States by 1930, with a significant portion arriving during the 1920s, primarily settling in areas like New York, South Florida, and Massachusetts. This wave of migration was largely due to opportunities with the United Fruit Company, which facilitated travel from the Caribbean to Boston.
Fruit Company, South Florida. Oh, South Florida, the bottom of Florida. Okay. So we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere.
West Indians moved to South Florida in the 1920s for a number of reasons, including economic opportunities, labor shortages, and the expansion of the fruit harvesting industry.
Hmm.
The U.S. economy was expanding.
The fruit harvesting industry. What's that?
The fruit harvesting industry is a labor-intensive sector of agriculture that involves picking, packing, and transporting fruit. It's a vital part of the food economy, supplying fresh fruit to food processors and manufacturers.
A labor intensive sector of agriculture. Hmm. Let's go. So now, Marcus Garvey. Did he arrive in New York illegally or legally? These West Indians. How many of you guys came here legally? Because it said 200,000 black folks and it said 100,000 West Indians. Half of you guys came to New York, sidestepped the Jim Crow violent South, and you went to the soft East Coast, Northeast Coast, like I called it, Tiffany. That's what it was compared to the Jim Crow South. They said the violent Jim Crow South. They didn't say violent Ellis Island.
Yes, some West Indians did illegally arrive in America during the 1920s, often by stowing away on ships or jumping ship, particularly in major ports like Boston, as immigration laws became increasingly restrictive, especially with the Immigration Act of 1924, which limited quotas based on nationality, effectively making it harder for non-European immigrants to enter legally.
Okay, so that's why I said I don't even believe Garvey came legally. They had restricted laws against themselves. When you just seen 1924, they don't have black folks in their mind right now. Neither do they have Mexicans. They got Europeans in their mind. I didn't even think Chinese folks were considered at this point. This was just Europeans. Like, yo, we are restricting Europeans from Europe from coming. They ain't even thinking about uh, West Indies or Africa. They're not even thinking about anybody dark. No Haitians, nobody like that. Okay, okay, okay. Oh, okay. Now, let's go into the wealth gap. So I came across a video with an Indian woman going hard in the paint explaining the wealth gap. She did a great job with the timeline, all the way from the abolishing of slavery all the way till now. So don't let these tethers talk about now and why we're not working on welfare as though this whole thing wasn't systematic. I'm going to show you clips of how detailed the systematic racism, like the receipt just is there. The receipts are just there. Like you'll be a fool and you'll just be anti FBA. What Tether is, if you're from the diaspora or the continent of Africa and you have these ill views about us, you're a Tether. And you would have to just be a Tether to deny the receipts I'm about to drop on you.
Picture this. It's 1950 and the Smiths, a white family from New York, want to buy a new home in the suburbs for what would be about $62,000 in today's money. Now, meet the Johnsons. They're a black family who also dreams of buying a new home in this neighborhood. The Smiths apply for a bank loan and are quickly approved. The loan was backed by the federal government to boot. The Johnsons apply for a similar loan, but are rejected because banks will only lend to white Americans. While the Smiths begin moving in, the Johnsons can't find a realtor who will show them homes in the Smiths neighborhood, even if they wanted to pay in cash. The Johnsons then try their luck in a predominantly black neighborhood. They're denied a loan again because the federal government refuses to back black buyers anywhere. Picture this.
Okay, so Tethers, did y'all consider that? Deliberately being locked out of wealth. Deliberately being locked out of wealth. So that's why I say when they talk that
Flash
stuff,
forward to the year 2000.
so when they talk about that stuff, you got to think about what they're doing. Like they're doing more than just talking shit and trolling. They are disrespecting the lineage to the worst degree. They're erasing our past, and language like that amongst the white supremacists with power and legislation, talking like that white supremacy feel like, hey, we got an ally. Let's FBAs. Okay, you want to delineate? All right, well, let's delineate. Let's put your ass back in, and only you, back in some Jim Crow states. This is dangerous tether talk.
The Smiths have paid off their home that's now appreciated in value up to $149,000. The Johnsons, on the other hand, had to rent for the past 2 generations. While the Smiths built wealth and passed it down to their grandkids, the Johnsons never saw a return on their rent.
This is not an isolated incident. Scenarios like this have been plaguing Black Americans for generations, and it's only getting worse. Today, Black families have a median net worth of $17,150. Compare that to white families, who have a worth nearly 10 times as much at $171,000.
Flash forward to the year 2000.
Okay, so locked out of wealth deliberately, and we got Tethers coming over here, looking at us, ignoring all of what we just seen, and saying, "You guys need to lock." Let's keep it going.
On average, every additional dollar a white family earns grows to about $5.19 in wealth. Black families see a negative return of about 69 cents, which means they lose wealth over time. And the racial wealth gap is widening in the United States. On average, every additional dollar a white family earns grows to about $5.19 in wealth. Black families see a negative return of about 69 cents, which means they lose wealth over time. And the racial wealth gap is widening in the United States. On average.
Good point, MC Fact. It's not a migration for us. Like, this is our country. Like, we have access to these are called the United States. So that's like one person from Europe going from one city to next city, or this state to that state. All right, that's not migrating. That's moving from New York City or to California. That's from moving from Atlanta to Texas. That's not migration. All of this you can do as a U.S. citizen. All right, you're still in your homeland. So that's slick little language. All right, so now let's go.
Secure banking and low-cost credit are 2 of the most basic means of building wealth. Here's how that works. Banks take in deposits. They keep that money safe and accessible to their depositors. Then they loan that money out and charge interest on it, therefore making a profit. People can make money by depositing money into a bank, getting a loan from the bank, using that loan to build equity through buying property or starting a business, and then building their wealth from those endeavors.
But Black Americans have been denied fair access to banking to build wealth.
Secure banking and
So we've been denied deliberately, exclusively from building wealth. All right, let's go.
Near the end of the American Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln agreed to establish a settlement that would include 40 acres of land and a mule for each newly emancipated family. After Lincoln's assassination, President Andrew Johnson thought formerly enslaved people should work to buy their own land instead.
What?
Remember that thing about needing some wealth in order for it to grow? Well, President Johnson took all that away, denying them the capital they needed to start building wealth. So instead of 40 acres and a mule, the Freedmen's Savings Bank was established.
Here's why that was a problem. A bank must secure deposits and offer loans to the depositor in order to build wealth, and the Freedmen's Bank was explicitly not a lending bank. It was made to hold people's deposits and not multiply it through the yields of a loan.
Near the end of the American Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln agreed.
Okay, so again, every time we get some wealth to level up, the wealth gets stripped from us. So we were deprived of wealth during chattel slavery. So we generated massive wealth for this country, and we didn't reap any of it. So Abraham Lincoln, in a attempt to reconcile a little bit of that, say, all right, let's start them off with some wealth. The wealth they generated as we enslaved them ain't comparable to what I'm about to give them, but it's a start. So he gave us some wealth. He said 40 acres and a mule. And then the next guy comes and say, nah. So again, they take the wealth from us and say, no, start from scratch. Start from your bootstraps. But the Europeans, the Northern Europeans, Western Europeans, Southern Europeans, Eastern Europeans, when they came over here, they didn't start from scratch with their bootstraps. They were given land grants and other incentives to level up, free education how to farm, okay, subsidies. Nobody came here and went the bootstrap route besides us. And guess what? If some illegals came over here with the bootstraps, because we know they could get assistance as well. But let's say an illegal came with the bootstraps. Well, good for you. But one difference, nobody took it from you over and over and over and kept saying start over. That's what kept happening to us. We bootstrapped, got it from the mud, and they took it. Start over. We bootstrapped, got it from the mud, and they took it over and over and over, all the way till now. Okay, now let her cook. Let her cook. Let her cook.
Still, the bank was so successful that in 10 years it handled $75 million. That's 1.5 billion in today's money.
That much money proved too tempting for its white finance chairman, who secretly invested deposits in high-risk enterprises.
He's taking.
The bank had been heavily advertised to be a low-risk savings bank, not an investment bank. This lie was the newest example of black capital being used to benefit white people.
Undermining.
The risky loans eventually failed, and in 1874, the Freedmen's Bank closed its doors, wiping out $3 million of hard-earned black savings with it. W.E.B. Du Bois said at the time that another decade of slavery wouldn't have damaged black wealth as much as the Freedmen's Bank collapse did.
Okay, you see that? So again, we got it from the mud, and here go the white man undermining and saying, start over, Negro. Start over, FBA. This is not your history, Tethers. This has never happened to you. You've been left alone to do what you want to do. And you guys, what you end up doing? Creating corrupt governments, mutilating women's clitoris, child PDF institutions. Jamaica, 89%, second highest in the world brain drain. Jamaicans, 60% saying, yo, we'd rather be under Zaddy. We don't want independence. Jamaica, under Zaddy, lowest murder rate in the world. Jamaica, Zaddy leaves, highest murder rate in the world. Jamaica is literally the world's Chicago. Jamaica is the world's Chicago. Okay, if Chicago, the city, is in the minor leagues, then Jamaica's in the major leagues. If Chicago is the G League, the city, then Jamaica is the NBA. All right, but she ain't done cooking, because listen to her timeline, her receipts of timeline. This is amazing how she did this one. I wrote her. I had to give her props. I said, sis, you did your thing on this one. Her timeline is sharp. She showed you how we just kept getting stripped and stripped and stripped, locked out of the wealth. An organized plan, a conspiracy, what they would call it. RICO, right? Ain't that a RICO? Because it's still doing it. American government. Ain't that still RICO? It's still doing it. Okay. Here we are.
For decades after the disaster, African Americans distrusted the banking system. The few banks that would take their deposits wouldn't loan money to them, effectively using African American money to build more white wealth. So, whilst white people bought homes and started businesses and watched their wealth grow, black people's capital was once again exploited and lay stagnant. But then, at the turn of the century, black Americans decided to build their own wealth. And this time, do it on their own terms by establishing black banks.
Out the mud again.
From 1900 to 1930, about 130 black-owned banks were formed.
Black Wall
But these
Street.
banks could only succeed as much as segregation allowed them to. Black depositors generally had lower balances and withdrew money more frequently than their white counterparts.
For decades after the disaster,
Finish cooking.
African Americans
This meant that black banks had less capital on hand, which made it
She
harder
out here cooking better than Kyra.
to lend. Without enough lending, economic mobility in black communities was stunted. Black banks were very separate.
Let me get that back. Let's run that back.
This meant that black banks had less capital on hand, which made it harder to lend. Without enough lending, economic mobility in black communities was stunted. Black banks were very separate, very unequal, and most didn't survive the Great Depression. Through the rest of the century, one of the most common ways Americans held and grew wealth was by owning property. As a result, it's no surprise homeowners' median net worth is now 80 times bigger than renters. Hefty government subsidies have played a huge part in creating a once strong middle class, but black Americans have largely been left out. This meant that black banks had less.
Okay, so you can see it's all about lending. So the first Freedmen Bureau Bank back in the 1800s, right, late 1800s, it was a savings bank. It wouldn't lend, right? So now lending is where it's at, is what we're learning.
One of the best examples of this comes from President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal program designed to build back American wealth after the Great Depression. It was 1934, and the Federal Housing Administration had just been created to insure home loans.
With the FHA guarantee that mortgages would be covered even if homeowners couldn't pay, banks could make out loans without fear of losing money. This was one of the biggest wealth-building measures of the century. Historians have gone so far as to call it white affirmative action. Purposefully and critically, it left out black Americans.
The federal government didn't just insure mortgages anywhere. They published risk maps where the least desirable, riskiest areas were colored in red. Risk was completely determined by race. The more black residents in a neighborhood, the more risky. One of the best examples.
Okay, so it's funny because Tethers, they come over here and they try to demonize assistance when none of them do anything without assistance, right? Unless you come over here like Vivek, all you guys experience some type of government assistance, but they would shun it when it comes to us. So with us, they will talk about assistance is the worst thing ever. But the New Deal, it was nicknamed white affirmative action. Looking back, the New Deal, that's all white folks know is assistance. Slavery was assistance. Jim Crow for the South was assistance. That's all they know. But for us, assistance, no. So obviously in this country, assistance is needed to as a stepping stone for you to level up. But again, Tethers come over here and try to talk down on assistance because you know why? They want us to start all over. Get it from the mud. Get it from the mud. So assistance, when you have assistance, you're not in the mud just yet. But the goal for all these haters, these Tethers, these racists, they want us to start all over and get it from the mud. They don't want us to have any leverage. No step up.
This practice, called redlining, meant that residents of mostly black neighborhoods were denied housing loans and therefore the opportunity to buy property. Black families like the Johnsons were also shut out of mostly white neighborhoods for fear that their purchase would flip the neighborhood to risky. Even though housing discrimination was outlawed by the Fair Housing Act of 1968, Black people today still face unequal barriers to housing by way of denied home loans and undervalued properties.
Black Americans still face exploitative financial conditions, whereas white Americans have a better chance to build wealth. In the system, reasonable loans and low-cost credit options are made available to white communities, whereas predatory and higher-risk loans and credit is offered to Black communities.
All right, so at this point, you know, some of us know where these dots are. She's connecting the dots, and some of us know what it's painting at this point. Okay, and this is what Tethers are mad at. This is where some white folks are mad at. This undeniable history of white society intentionally locking out FBAs exclusively out of wealth. Okay, sabotaging, taking it outright, discriminating, all these efforts to keep us broke, to keep us without owning something. Okay, so this is what Tethers are mad at. Now she drew a timeline from the abolishing of slavery, President Abraham Lincoln, and look where we are now. She's almost in modern era. So she by herself has shown some type of receipts, some paper trail from this country, my fault, from this country, intentionally locking out FBAs from wealth. So you think this is supposed to just go underneath the rug and we just keep it moving, start from the mud today? So when you hear these Tethers say, hey man, I got a degree in engineering, and guess what? Ain't too many FBAs in that school. It's a lot of Tethers there. Or my mom had to work double as hard as you. Okay. Just know that they are purposely, some don't know, some are purposely ignoring this history. But don't worry, because at some point, the check will be cut. My lifetime, my son's lifetime, his son. But guess what? I want you guys to be here. Tethers. So we can oh, that's gonna be the biggest flex ever. Y'all sitting here thirsty as hell and we just flexing on you. That's gonna be the biggest flex when those checks are cut and you over there looking from the ruts.
Take the subprime mortgage loans of the 1990s. Subprime loans were intended for borrowers who had less than prime credit assets or income. These loans had high interest rates that got very expensive very fast. They were also discriminately being sold to Black borrowers, even though many qualified for prime loans. Between 1993 and 1998, high-cost subprime loans were 5 times more likely in Black neighborhoods than white ones. And when the housing market crashed in 2008, Black Americans lost more than half of their wealth. Sound familiar? A home in a mostly Black neighborhood is still undervalued by $48,000 on average compared to an almost identical home in a mostly white neighborhood. That's $156 billion in lost equity across all Black-owned homes in the US.
156 billion lost equity. That's supposed to be in our Black pockets, our FBA pockets. Gone. $156 billion is gone because of white supremacists and white supremacy, the institution of white supremacy in this country. We're out of $156 billion just off the discrimination, the housing discrimination. Just off the housing discrimination, we are approximately estimately down $156 billion. And you guys are talking trash. All right. Y'all better hope like hell these checks are not cut in my lifetime. Shit. Stunting like how that song go by stunting like my daddy. Shit, man. I mess around and get a Jamaican tattoo in the back of my head to troll y'all.
When it comes to banking, expensive penalties for having low balances or withdrawing frequently means that nearly half of the black population is unbanked or underbanked, leaving them prime targets for check cashers and payday lenders. As it turns out, it's really expensive being poor. Exploitation of black capital, breaching contracts, redlining, Jim Crow laws have undoubtedly created a racial wealth gap.
Jim Crow.
But these tactics have done much worse than impact black wallets. When it comes to banking, expensive penalties.
Okay, so that's what Jim Crow laws were doing. All right, all this white supremacy was designed to handicap us forever to this day. Deontay Wilder. Hold on, almost done. We're almost done. 3 more videos and we are out of here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna upload this. I'm gonna go live and re-air this on my other channel. So subscribe to my other channel. I put it in the chat. It's in the chat. Subscribe to that channel. I'm going to re-air this right away on that channel. If you can, come there, watch it all over. This is good information. You're not going to remember all this. It's a lot to unpack. So watch all over. What I'm going to do, I'm watching all over again with you. Come there, support, interact in the chat, let family know who you are, you know, because we got a serious threat from all sides. We are literally by ourselves right now. And that's dangerous.
Of poverty and violence emerges when you look at the history of the places where recent police killings and uprisings have happened.
The Minneapolis neighborhood where George Floyd was killed. The Staten Island neighborhood where Eric Garner was killed. The Baltimore neighborhood where Freddie Gray was killed. All these areas were once deemed hazardous and redlined in risk assessment maps. The federal government intended to keep these redlined neighborhoods poor and heavily policed, widening the wealth gap even further.
So where do we go from here? Let's start by thinking about equality under the law as a legal contract. And then let's acknowledge that that contract has been breached. When contracts are breached, settlements need to be made. A pattern of...
When contracts are breached, settlements must be made. So you see where we're going with this. Oh, this is a Tethers nightmare right here.
Academics, activists, and even some politicians agree and are calling for reparation. Beginning in 1989, Democrats started introducing bills to study reparations, which would include a formal apology from the government and compensation to descendants.
Oh, yeah.
Reparations are not unheard of to America.
Descendants of whom? Descendants of slavery.
Compensation to descendants.
$8.
Reparations are not unheard of to Americans, and they can come in many forms.
In 1988, the government paid $20,000 to every living survivor of the Japanese internment camps, and Native Americans have seen reparations, albeit to a much lesser extent as well.
Were those handouts, again, like all they do, listen, ignore it. None of that stuff bothers me. It's like, okay, it doesn't bother Tariq Nasheed and a lot of folks who support him on this channel. Y'all could say handouts, y'all could say lazy, all y'all want. All we say is cut the check. You dig? However you want to call it, cut the check.
Well,
reparations for descendants of slavery could look like compensations for wages lost or discriminatory practice. It could be a more holistic approach that would see a bolstering of community growth. Academics, activists, and even some politicians.
Speaking of academics, nobody listening to me should be subscribed to that clown, that tether. Okay?
Since so much discrimination has occurred around housing, one solution could be creating a down payment assistance fund, real money that could appreciate through home ownership. The government could also fully fund childcare, allowing more black parents to stay in the workforce. Evidence shows this would create economic benefits to the state and federal governments in turn. Win-win. Wiping out student loan debts and cash bail systems, or creating business grants for startups, these could all be forms of reparations. And it doesn't have to stop with the government. Some private banks and universities with a history of enslaving black people have set up college scholarship funds to start chipping away at their wrongdoing. Since so much discrimination has occurred around housing, one solution could be creating a down payment assistance fund.
Okay, so there you have it, man. Even, East Indians know what's due to us, but Tethers somehow act like, and white supremacists act like, we don't understand, don't care, you don't need to understand. Get out the way. Or stay in the way, doesn't matter. Cut the check. So keep going to Ellis Island. Keep avoiding the smoke, which you heard, the violent Jim Crow South. That's what made us. What made us who we are was experiencing the violent Jim Crow South. You can't relate. You're not like us. It's okay. It's okay. You went to Ellis Island. We were in the violent Jim Crow South. You know nothing about that. Garvey wanted no smoke with that, and none of you Tethers wanted any smoke with the Jim Crow South. We were there. We were there. You dig? So you know how we say the hood today, from the hood, and that makes a different type of person. Well, we should now forever say, I'm from the South. I got Southern roots. Matter of fact, I'm from the Jim Crow South. Let's say it like that. You got folks from the South. I'm from the Jim Crow South. With that being said, I'm out of here. Hey, everybody. I put my other channel in the chat. Go subscribe to that. Go there now. I'm going to be airing this again there right now. I think I did a great job with this video. I think I started at 5 a.m. I think I did a great job presenting this live. Peace. FBA 1. Yeah, we're not out here just yet. Okay, we're not out here just yet. I got to share some stuff real quick. So remember, Tethers like to brag about their few elitists that's over here in America doing good, seeking higher education. But we always ask about, but it's only like 60 y'all. What about the 250 other? What about the other 250 million Nigerians? How are they doing in education? All right, so we're going to examine that. And we're going to further examine what is hyperselectivity, because that's what's going on with the Nigerians over here and the VVEX, the Indians, East Indians. America is recruiting their most brightest minds their country can offer, and they're coming over here acting like they're the status quo back at home. They're acting like they're not the elitists. Oh, I got this going on. I got a degree. Yeah, but you're the country's elitist. Like you're representing the intellect of your country. Now compare you to ours. So comparison. That few 100 of them, or whatever number, is a fair comparison to the whole embodied FBAs. Because we have intelligent, super intelligent, regular ed, special ed. So your elitist is going to compare to our body? No. You compare elitists with elitists. By doing that, you guys can't compare again. Okay. So anyway, let's go into what is hyperselectivity with immigrations. Well, with immigration, singular. What is hyperselectivity with immigrants and immigration? What is hypo selectivity and what is high selectivity? Again, exclusive from unbiased source, FBA Defensive Unit. Here we go.
Hyperselective immigrants are immigrants who are more likely to have a college degree than the general population of their country of origin and the country they immigrated to.
Okay, you see that? So these are,
Chinese,
oh, no,
a
no, no.
large
Okay, so these are the elitists, right? So these folks that come over here, I got a college education. I'm a, civil engineer. And they act like they're reflecting their country. It's like, dude, you are the top 1% of your country. You see? The rest of you guys back home are functional illiterates. All right. So don't come over here showing your best when you over here looking at our best, mediocre, and worse. So here's a case in point with China. Look at this. There's a stereotype about Chinese people. They're so smart. Well, not according to this right here. So it can be misleading, right? Where is my, okay, so it's my chat bot. You want to read? Then I'll do it. One more time. I ain't gonna waste time here. Okay, we got it on this one. So examples of hyper-selected immigrant groups. Look who's in there, Nigerians. A large educated group of immigrants in the United States, for example, 51% of Chinese immigrants in the United States have a college degree, compared to only 4% adults in China. So 51% of these elitist Chinese people in this country got college degrees. Oh, they're so smart. But back at home, only 4% of the Chinese adults have a college degree. Oh, not so bright, are they? Nigerians. Nearly 2/3 of Nigerian immigrants have a college degree in America. But what about back home? How is that working out?
Schooling does not imply learning, but lack of learning increases the likelihood of dropping out of school. According to UNICEF, the primary school completion rate was at 59% in 2020 for boys and 51% for girls. The secondary completion rate is lower, with boys at 42% and girls at 36%.
Failures. Okay, these are Nigerians back in Nigeria. Okay, the real Nigerian. Will the real Nigerian please stand up? Let's keep it going.
According to recent data, Nigeria's literacy rate in 2024 is estimated to be around 59.57%. This indicates a slight decrease from the 2021 literacy rate of 77.62%.
59%.
Source.
That's terrible. So no, you're not all these, oh, I got this, I got that. Yeah, but your country is a we. All right? It's not an I. What do you guys got? Nothing. So now let's go to hyposelectivity.
Hyposelectivity is a term used to describe immigrant groups who have a lower percentage of college graduates than their native country and the host country. It's the opposite of hyperselectivity, which describes immigrant groups with a higher percentage of college graduates. Hyposelectivity.
There you go. So hyposelectivity is a term used to describe immigrant groups who have a lower percentage of college graduates than their native country and the host country. All right. Now let's go to high selectivity. Let's get it all out.
High selectivity immigrants refers to a group of immigrants who, compared to the general population in their origin country, are significantly more likely to possess positive characteristics like higher education levels, skills, or entrepreneurial spirit, meaning they are considered a select group with advantageous traits for the receiving country. Essentially, they are not a random sample of their home population, but rather a group with specific, desirable qualities that make them more likely to succeed in the new environment.
Oh, they are not a random sample of their home population. So it wasn't like they any, meeny, miny, mo, these folks. Look, they're so bright, you could pick anyone. No, but rather a group with specific desirable qualities that make them more likely to succeed in the new environment. These are hand-picked, selected. That's why the term selective is there. Okay. Now, these hand-picked, cherry-picked, so-called intellectuals, but look what happened to them. They end up leaving their country, causing brain drain. They cause brain drain to their country when they leave. What is brain drain to a country?
Brain drain is the migration of highly educated and skilled people from developing countries to more developed countries. IT is a concern because it can slow economic growth and development in the countries that people leave.
It can concern because,
Turmoil.
oh, no,
People may
stop.
leave.
Okay. It is a concern because it can slow economic growth and development in the countries that people leave. So that means their homeland is not benefiting from this intellect, this hard work. Their country's not getting that. So as a result, it's there to defend for itself and it's rotting. That's why their homelands don't get any better. They're not returning. And when they don't return, it's called brain drain. Okay. What is brain gain?
Brain gain refers to the phenomenon where skilled workers emigrate to other countries, bringing their knowledge and experience with them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is the reverse of brain drain, where advanced students and highly skilled workers leave their home countries.
And as a result, the country that's receiving these intellectual properties and this hard work, that country is becoming greater and greater and greater, while the country that's losing their intellectuals and hard workers, quote unquote, are lacking thereof, therefore falling apart and becoming more degenerate, more barbaric, more chaotic, more archaic. All right. So now people want to know Adolf's position on how it stands. Is it a lineage, their reparation stance? So I'm gonna leave it with this, and then we're out of here. So no more guessing. You're gonna know exactly what Adolf is right now, what it's not. No more guessing what they are. No more spewing false news. Let's just get it from the website's mouth.
Question: what does reparation mean? A. Per the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, reparation is the act of making amends for wrongdoing, something done or given as amends or satisfaction, the payment of damages. Question: what are the unique wrongdoings that merit reparations for ADOS? A. The ADOS reparations claim refers to redress for the U.S. government-sanctioned institution of chattel slavery from 1776, 1865, and the failure of the federal government to adequately protect the 4 million formerly enslaved persons and their progeny during the Reconstruction era of 1866 to 1877. The chief act of negligence at this time was the revocation of material compensation, e.g., 40 acres. These people were trafficked to America, and their descendants were bred domestically. Though many stakeholders existed in the transatlantic and domestic slave trades, the federal government was ultimately culpable for allowing the inhumane institution to persist in the new nation. As such, the ADOS Advocacy Foundation advocates for reparations for the descendants of U.S. chattel slavery to be paid by the federal government for harms including, but not limited to, U.S. chattel slavery from 1776, 1865, the forced labor of the enslaved population for 89 years in the newly formed country, the inability of the enslaved to patent or prosper from their inventions, mental, physical, and economic abuse, lack of body autonomy, the rampant rape of enslaved women and men, enslaved women forced to nurse their enslavers' babies, and enslaved people forced to have sex with one another to increase the slave population, the commercialization of enslaved families, the sale and separation of enslaved families for business purposes, medical experimentations on enslaved people and their cadavers. As a result of enslavement, our ancestors could not take advantage of the 1862 Homestead Act and, owing to anti-Black discrimination post-slavery, subsequent land grant initiatives. the failure of the federal government to protect and provide for the newly freed after the Civil War in 1865. The failure to maintain Reconstruction-era policies, such as the promise of 40 acres to the newly freed population. Widespread and unchecked lynchings by white mobs and white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan. Massacres were conducted by white mobs within black communities, e.g., Colfax, Wilmington, LaFleur, Vicksburg, etc. Land theft and sharecropping. Convict leasing. Question: what are lineage-based reparations and why do they matter? A lineage-based claim is the most precise and legally sound concept in pursuing ADOS reparations. Just as certain unique genetic traits are passed down from ancestor to subsequent descendants, the unique economic disadvantage that the institution of U.S. chattel slavery established for our ancestors has been transmitted from generation to generation exclusively within our group. Our experience in America is inseparable from the event of slavery, its massive economic consequence, and its enduring legacy. And so, in our political project of repair, lineage, beginning with our ancestors who were first subject to chattel slavery's plundering nature, is how we identify who bears the full measure of that cost. Question: who qualifies for ADOS reparations? A person must 1. Be a citizen of the United States of America and have identified as Negro, colored, Black, or African American throughout their life on government documentation. 2. Present a government-issued ID, birth certificate, or census record identifying a direct ancestor as Negro, colored, Black, or African American before 1965. And 3. Trace their ancestry to at least one person that identified as Negro, colored, Black, or who was an enslaved person in the United States between 1776 and 1865. Question: what will ADOS reparations include? A. Remedies must encompass comprehensive financial, land, education, mental health services, and reparations protection programs. In addition, a new federal agency must be created to administer and oversee the program, including assisting participants with verifying their eligibility. Question: where did the $20 trillion figure come from? A. In 1990, Dr. David H. Swinton developed a formula for estimating the cost of slavery. One of the components of his formula is the value of labor expropriated EL. Later, Dr. Thomas Kramer expounded on the EL metric with his wage-based estimation. In 2022, Kramer's conservative 3% compound interest rate used to calculate the debt for unpaid slave wages was estimated to be $20 trillion. At the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, we advocate for the $20 trillion amount as a baseline to be distributed to eligible recipients. Question: does the ADOS Advocacy Foundation support local reparations initiatives? A. Our aim at the ADOS Advocacy Foundation is to create a piece of federal legislation that can comprehensively satisfy our community's needs. We view local reparations programs as a contradiction and very unlikely to achieve their stated purpose of compensating for the economic legacy of slavery. This is because states and localities confront enormous budgetary impediments concerning direct cash payments, the most symbolically and materially significant component of any repair initiative for past harms. Moreover, it seems that those states or localities that do pursue reparations programs for slavery and ongoing discrimination have focused their efforts exclusively on the latter set of harms, most often via programs that seek to redress victims of unjust housing policies that began in the latter half of the 20th century. In many cases, these offenses were not unique to ADOS. This potential for competing, identical claims to be filed by other groups is at odds with our purpose here at the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, which is to ensure that any reparations policy encompasses the fullness and singularity of our group's victimization, which must involve the original harm suffered under the institution of chattel slavery. In addition, Congress has introduced legislation, H.R. 4321, to prohibit the United States government from providing bailouts or other financial assistance to any state or local government that enacts laws providing reparations for slavery. This bill is designed to prevent local governments from passing reparative initiatives. Even if policymakers believe local reparations to be just, supporting them would immeasurably impact their local economies and ability to govern. Question: what should advocates do when a local reparations initiative begins in their area? A. We encourage advocates to become members of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation and WP Sign Up, PHP, their local chapter.